See a little bit here on both sides of the table here in round number one. Justin Brickman, of course, versus our MVP, Gerrick Alford, looking very sharp in those championship jackets for 2024. Love to see it as these players, like I said, are getting ready to go, but Brickman currently an empty chair, so I'm a little skeptical about his ability to battle at the moment.
Yes, would be quite impressive to be able to pull this one off as an empty chair, but...
Yeah, all jokes aside, again, Brickman going to be present, I guess, shortly. I don't know what that's about. But Brickman qualified alongside his team in the May Trios Showdown. And of course, Gerrick Alford was one of the season 1 point leaders and chose to keep battling it out through the rest of the season, became the MVP. So his hard work throughout the rest of the season, despite already being qualified, paid off. And so he is the MVP, gets the extra perk, gets all the extra goodies that come with that. I believe free entry to all the energies next year, which if he has a year like this year, I mean, he's going to be getting use out of that. And yeah, like I said, Brickman got it done in one go as well. A little, one tournament, one takedown. And ended up a little lower on the leaderboard. Number 37 is how he finished. So not quite as good as number 1 as Gerrick awaiting his opponent. Both players. I love it. These players all know each other. The expression there. He says, come on, come get a taste. There you go. Windswept teeth go. He's had that play ready to go for a long time. I love this so much. These players
locked and loaded. We're getting right into it. Players taking their first turns. We're going to have a little surveil land here for Brickman. Now, Drake, talk to us a little bit about the Azorius control mirror. What are these players wanting to do? How does their game plan change at all, knowing that they're up against the mirror?
So, yeah, I think when you talk about a traditional control mirror fundamentals, you know, the kind of basics are, you know, obviously you don't want to blink first. You don't want to be the first one to try to resolve a big main phase spell, which there are a lot of in this deck, a lot of important ones in the form of Teferi Time Raveler and the One Ring. These are cards that are very powerful, but can be difficult to resolve because, again, you don't want to blink first. And so the key is hitting your land drops in the early turns. So you're going to see a lot of these surveil lands be prevalent. You're going to see a lot of players holding up mana and really cashing in any cantrips, any kind of draw spells that they can to hit their land drops. But you know, if somebody starts missing land drops, great. You can start to set yourself up to stick one of these very powerful threats and have backup as you see these players taking very quick turns. And that is another aspect. Typically, time starts to come into play because these matchups can go very long. These players taking a long time to make their first decision as not a lot is going through. But the surveillance, like I said, big upgrades as far as making more control mirrors actual games, you know, because they let both players hit land drops more often. So that's going to be the first part of the turn. And then, of course, once some player blinks first, somebody who runs out of lands or whatever has enough spells, they think they can stick something, they're going to resolve something, and then it's going to start to be the slugfest. You're going to kind of get into stage 2 of the control mirror, where players just start trying to resolve the best haymakers they can in order to really propel themselves ahead with all of the resources they have accumulated throughout these early developmental turns.
Yeah, and as we are, you know, as you said, very quickly going through these turns here, you know, both these players, I mean, here we have turn 5. Looks like
Orange Chant?
I think that is Orange Chant.
Yep, 4 copies of that.
To follow it up.
Both decks. Yeah, there you go. So there's the protection, right? You know, it's way cheaper than it used to be back in the day. You used to have to get to 7 lands. Here we're at 5, able to Orb Chant and then resolve Teferi. So now none of Justin Brickman's counter spells work. So he's going to need to answer this Teferi if he can. I think I saw Prismatic Ending among the mix. So that's going to be important. You can't let this stick around. Your cards don't work.
Yeah, we will see how Brickman chooses to deal with this. Yeah, it looks like it is going to be the Prismatic Ending here. And that is going to resolve.
Again, needs to happen. Doesn't feel good because Gerrick already drew a card off that. It's still a 2-for-1. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's so powerful. Teferi Time Raveler in this matchup is so powerful. You can't just let it stick. But Gerrick also had to spend an Orange Chant to make it happen. So we are card neutral across the whole thing. So not a huge blowout for Brickman. But, I mean, Gerrick still getting through his deck, still drawing cards, still playing lands, and has counter spells in hand. So he's very well postured in this matchup. Justin, it's not too bad either. Was able to get rid of the Teferi.
Yeah, definitely, good that Justin was able to respond to it immediately. But also does sort of start to kind of set the cadence of the match a little bit, with Gerrick being the first one to really get to resolve something and Justin having to respond to it. As we're going to see a Solitude get surveilled away there off the top. What,
Yeah,
if
I think that's
anything, do
actually
you
a bit.
think that tells Gerrick?
Yeah, I think that's pretty meaningful. The card, again, pretty good. It's something that you can just like stick, start attacking, and that makes Teferi's a little bit more questionable to try to stick because obviously you either have to bounce it going back to hand, or you have to try to whatever answer instead. And here you actually see Gerrick playing one. So when you see a Solitude surveilled to the yard, that to me signals that Justin's close to running out of lands. So if you're Gerrick, I mean, you have to be excited to see that because it's like, okay, even though Solitude's not the best card, it's one you would probably keep if you have a bunch of lands for this reason here, right? You could just like slap it down, here's start attacking, and it's going to still be a 1-for-1. You have to answer it at some point. It's not actually that bad having flash very strong. So I think it is a big signal to Gerrick that Justin's starting to run out of lands as here comes the beatdowns.
Yeah, and really feeling like Gerrick has taken a pretty dominating posture in this game here, as we're going to see a Narset come down
Yeah,
after the
Narset follow-up certainly speaks to a dominating posture. That one just happens. So, you have to feel like if you're Gerrick, didn't care too much about this. We didn't lead on any Orms chant. I mean, we have counterspell matching backup if we want it, but I can't imagine you want to tap yourself all the way out. Justin doesn't even fire anything off. And I think if you're Gerrick, you have to love to see that because you now believe that he's low on lands. And if he's not willing to spend a counterspell to just to take this thing off the table, then he can't be flooded on counterspells either. What does that leave his hand? Not a lot of good cards in the matchup.
Yeah, very, very interesting here. So looks like we're going to just fetch.
Oof.
Oh,
all right.
Knock the Narset off the table.
I don't know what happened. I think we flipped that other Narset. Yeah, I don't know if we knocked off the table, but I believe it is now correctly in hand. So yeah, Narset 1 finds Narset 2. So we got the chain going. We're going infinite. And just
I don't know about infinite. I don't know how many copies of Narset one is allowed to have.
Well, Pierce, the player has believed the answer to be 3. 4 not allowed, only 3 copies in both of these decks. And notably, I think are both of these decks card for card the same? Let me see if I'm going to do a little quick analysis here. They might be playing the exact same deck list, which to me, I mean, obviously Brickman got a flex slot shirt on, would signal these players playing the exact same. Okay, all right, I have the difference.
Brickman left a One Ring on top of the deck.
Fetch lands. One Ring on top to me feels okay. Yeah, we just searched it away. Right, here we go.
Yeah, so we're gonna go basic island cycling. Looks like we're gonna try to cast this One Ring.
I mean, yeah, you have to know it's not going to happen, right? Because Gerrick was willing to just kind of throw a Narset out there with plenty of mana left over. That signals a counter spell. So I guess now at this stage, Justin just saying, okay, I'm behind. These Narsets are trying to pull ahead. He's set to just draw cards turn over turn. I can't wait any longer. And it's actually a signal of weakness. You're saying, okay, I have to just start to try to work through the counter spells and hope he runs out and I get to stick something that matters because you're pretty confident that's going to get countered by the posturing.
Yeah, and I mean, do you think for Gerrick right now, he's really like, smelling the blood in the water, ready to really start trying to close this game out? Like he's got to feel in a pretty dominating spot. I was seeing another Teferi hit the board.
Yeah, with Teferi joining, I think that really is the nail in the coffin. I think there was a little bit of desperation to like really punch the hole that you had made, and I think snapping off the counterspell from that Narset activation is a signal of that. Okay, he's kind of on the ropes a little bit, but I need to make sure I have the counter magic cover to make sure he doesn't get to stick something as he's trying to slam it turn over turn in this spot of desperation. With Teferi and that counterspell found, I think that's close to the door on everything. We're still attacking. We have both powerful planeswalkers, and even this Narset, you almost could just let it happen. Yeah, I love this.
Yeah, as we see, there was a Solitude drawn for the turn here.
You are so far ahead. The 2 cards from Narset just don't matter, and a good section of the cards you can find just don't even work either. Like if you can't find any counter magic, it doesn't work. And you have this Solitude that can clear the Narset if he does try to find a card for it. And this Narset really just kind of 3-mana cycling for Gerrick at best. It might brick, it might even just miss on a card. So love really just the patience here from Gerrick. Again, control masters abound. And yeah, like I said, both these players playing the exact same deck. They are playing the only difference is in their fetch land choice. One's on Deltas, one's on Misties. So they are on the exact same deck. Have to imagine they work together on this, being on the same team. And they both know what's going on here. Here's a Cosmic Rebirth. Oh, going for Manamo. Okay. Got an extra land for the trouble, and Teferi's going to come in. Yeah, that's going to bounce the Solitude. Kind of surprised we let this one in.
Sure, yeah. I mean, Justin, is able to get a couple Planeswalkers resolved. Looks like the Teferi is going to get dealt with swiftly here.
You have to get rid of it as soon as you can, really. You can't let them untap, maybe stick a One Ring. Things can really start to snowball with Teferi cover. So we do have to use the Prismatic Ending. And like I said, I'm just a little surprised to see that, because now we can't clear the Narset with the Solitude, which maybe is just fine. I mean, obviously Gerrick's still very ahead, but kind of wonder if that signals Gerrick really only has that one counter spell that we saw off Narset as his leftovers, and is really just trying to save that as the ace in the hole and try to line his other cards up that aren't necessarily as good as best as possible here.
Yeah, it looks like a few good choices here for Brickman. See the Cosmic Rebirth. There's also an Arms Chant, I believe, in that pile of cards.
Okay. So we may have found a hole. Yeah, these are good options.
And we know he's got 2 Solitudes in hand.
That can be good for clearing the Planeswalkers. And that's also, that's kind of weird too, because like you really kind of want to Solitude Gerrick's Solitude, but now the Solitude doesn't really even need to come down for Gerrick. He can kind of sit on it because the Narset is mostly textless at this point, although we are going to get rid of it here in response to the Arms Chant. Maybe to cover yourself against any kind of Days Undoing shenanigans. Both decks do have a single copy, and that would be a great way for Justin Brickman to immediately flip the script. So we do need to respond there with the Prismatic Ending. Otherwise, you're opening yourself up to getting got by that, which actually kind of stings. These are some bad exchanges for Gerrick, because here comes the One Ring. Oof.
Yeah, Justin is able to resolve a One Ring. Huge. I mean, such an important card just in Modern in general. We're going to go ahead and get that trigger. We're going to draw a card immediately.
Well, we actually have to do it on Gerrick's turn around Narset. Otherwise we don't get the card. So we do have to wait till the other turn. And that is going to limit. You get a look here at the card that is questionable how much longer it will be legal for. You have to wonder. A lot of people are talking about it. I think there was a moment in time in which it wasn't that highly played, but it was limiting a lot of what other decks could even do to respond to the metagame. A lot of conversation about this card, whether or not they can ban it based on the optics and things of that nature. I don't know. A very hot topic is how much longer will this card be legal? And based on all the decks that we've seen here already in the metagame breakdown, there's going to be a lot of them throughout our Modern section of this NRG championship.
Yeah, I mean, this could very well be the last major tournament of the One Ring in Modern.
Can't think of a better send-off than the NRG championships. And all these control players, they're going to be fine. There's plenty of cards to draw cards. Obviously, the One Ring is a very powerful part of these decks, but of the decks I think that get hurt the most by the One Ring ban, these two, not really among them, in my opinion. Here's another Prismatic Ending, a big feature for getting rid of these. And Gerrick can't let it happen.
Yeah. Very tough, as we are going to cast out this Solitude.
Yeah. Got a main phase it thanks to Teferi. And I mean, it can start to threaten to beat, but I mean, Gerrick still has a lot of options. 2 Planeswalkers to help deal with it. All the mana untapped. A lot of exchanges here. Justin's done a great job fighting through what I think was a very bad spot for him. I think we were kind of getting to the point where Gerrick was only a card or 2 away from really slamming the door in the game. And really, Justin's really been able to battle back in. Again, knowing when to pivot and to start just casting your stuff. It's probably going to get countered, but as you can see, eventually things start to work.
Yeah, it looks like Gerrick, looking through these Narset cards, is that another Arms Chant?
I believe so. Each deck on 4 copies, so have to like them, I guess, in some capacity here. This mirror, reaching for them over things like the One Ring.
And Justin just going to scoop it up at that.
Well, there you have it. That's game number 1. And again, an early lead there from Gerrick, and somebody, he's our MVP. He's obviously, a Masters, had a great year, and there in game number 1 in the mirror match looked very comfortable through the whole thing and looked to be really in a dominating position from, kind of the initial Teferi exchange on. I mean, that was a game that was about Gerrick, and he knew his plan and really executed very nicely throughout all of game 1.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, huge congrats to Gerrick taking down the first game there. Really, I feel like both players looked very comfortable. Even Justin, who, did seem to be in the worst position throughout most, if not all of that game, seemed to really he just looked comfy in it, Like, clearly these are two control players who really know the matchup, and, he knows, like, oh yeah, it's bad now, but I have these outs. And like the second he knows he's done for, it's over. It's like watching two chess masters play.
Yeah, that was good. I was gonna bring that up. It's just like two people that watching are going to play to the best of their ability. There's no mistakes. This is much closer to like true deck kind of matchup favorability versus not, which in this exact 75 card mirror is going to just be 50%. You either win or you don't, but what is neither player is going to make a mistake. And I don't know if we have deck lists here, but I do have deck lists in front of me. And again, both players are on the same deck. So this is actually going to be pretty easy to talk about here as you can get a look at the sideboards. 4 copies of Consigned to Memory. We got 3 Mystical Disputes, 2 Dovin's Veto, 2 Isochron Scepter, another Day's Undoing, the 4th Narset Parter of Veils, and the 4th Wrath of the Skies to go with the Kahira Companion. Both decks are on. A lot of stuff to like here.
Yeah, I mean, this just looks like such a clean and consistent deck,
Yeah.
It's always so nice when it's just like, all right, here's 4 copies of 8 cards that I love. You know what I mean? Like
the best blue and white cards in the format. So I guess the question is here, obviously the disputes, the vetoes, I think are easy ends. The question is how much more of like the Days Undoing stuff do you want? It's a great way to slam the door in the game. You do want the Narsets kind of anyway. Are those cards just free? Do you have enough white cards that are outs? I mean, the Orange Chance actually looked good. That would be a card that, sometimes I feel like would be good, sometimes it'd be bad. They actually looked very, very important in the matchup through all of game 1. But there's some of the cards like the Wrath effects I think are quite bad. The Wrath of the Skies, the Supreme Verdicts, I don't think you're really going to want those. So you already got a lot of ends with the counter spells. The question for me, for both of these players, again, the exact same 75 mirror, is so both these players, I think, are going to sideboard, especially given that they work together. I think they're going to sideboard the same way. So we can kind of just talk about it at large here. I think they're going to want the disputes. They're going to want the vetoes. The question is, do you want any of the like Days Undoing stuff? And maybe the Scepter stuff? I can't imagine that's good, but it does just kind of lock stuff out. If Orange Chance good, Orange Chance Return has to be good, but I'm a little more skeptical.
Sure. Now, as someone who's really like been on this grind before, do you think there is any like level 2 or 3 thinking when you are playing like a teammate, someone you work with, where you're like, well, we do have the exact same sideboard strategy. So, maybe because I know what you're doing, I am going to go in on the Days Undoing stuff, or I'm not going to do it because you think I'm going to do, like.
Ooh, the pivot away. Yeah, so that does come up. I have seen that. There's been drama about that, about even like Pro Tour teams and stuff like that. Through the years, there has been, we're supposed to do things this way, or we're playing the deck this way, but because the best players in the room are on this thing or doing things this way, you pivot away from it. And there's been a little bit of hotly contested drama about that. Not on the OG series as much. And in this spot, I don't even know how much leverage you would get. Like, you would have to be something like, you take out all the prismatic endings, Wrath of the Skies, and like Teferis or whatever. So now there's no answers to Isochron Scepter. So I should bring that in. Like, that would be the kind of pivot that I would expect, is like, knowing how they're going to sideboard means that you bring in a card that you wouldn't normally. I don't think there's really something that drastic going on here in this matchup. I mostly think that they're going to sideboard the same way, nice and just boring, consistent magic. It's just nothing. Don't get fancy. And whatever. It is what it is. I like that your analogy of chess masters is really what it feels like between these two decks. It is really just, okay, this is a gauntlet. Today is a gauntlet. You're playing as the best of the best. These are two players, especially round 1. They're just not going to make mistakes in these decks that they're experts with. How many times can you context switch and that still be true? How many good players can you play against in tight spots and still make decisions correctly? Round 6, round 7, round 8. That's really what you're going to see kind of this top 8 be full of, is players that can do that and do that well. And here in round 1, these players, obviously look very, very comfortable in their seats. And I think that for the most part, like I said, I think they're going to sideboard the same, whatever their strategy that they came up with. I think they're going to follow that. And it's going to feature a lot of counter magic. It's going to feature some good Magic fundamentals. And I mean, it's just great Magic. It really is more of the chess, less of the poker that, Magic gets compared to.
Yeah, so we are going to get right down into our game 2 here. We're going to have Justin Brickman on the play for this one. As we're drawing up our hand, see a Narset, see a Force Negation.
Pile of lands?
Big pile of lands.
Yeah, don't hate that at all.
Yeah, it's kind of the dream for these players, right? Narset counterspell of some variety, big pile of lands.
Sign me up. Reminds me of I played a lot of Standard in the Sphinx's Revelation days back in that Theros RTR, and there'd be times, I mean, and now you have Surveil lands, but there'd be times back in the day when we had to play with the Temple of Enlightenment, the Scry lands. You'd crack a hand with just 7 lands, like a couple temples, beautiful, snap. The absolute god hand, 7 lands. Sign me up. Love it. Can't get enough of this style of Magic. Something that me and both of these players, I think, have in common as we are in the play lands and pass portion of this game. Again, a big feature of the control mirror. Well, maybe, there's something to be spoken about here where there's only 1 land up for Gerrick. And maybe you try to jam a Planeswalker. You're jamming it into Mystical Dispute that you know about, but you could.
Yeah, which looks like we are going to do is chooses to play the island over the Surveillant in hand, and we are going to get hit by the Mystical Dispute.
We have the Mystical Dispute. Yeah, this is the risk. It's like, do you have one of the 3 Mystical Disputes? If not, this works. But I mean, I can't imagine you're going to play like that if you don't have it. But also, it's just not that bad for Justin. As long as there's no Teferi follow up or whatever. She had force cover anyway. We had it all.
We are going to go ahead and surveil away top of our deck there. It looks like a Force in Gerrick's hand as well.
Interesting too. The Surveillance I like a lot more than the Scrylands in these high-powered formats because it does give a lot more information about what's going on the other side of the table. So as soon as you see a land thrown to the graveyard, especially a land like Manamba, which has real utility if we can ever stick a One Ring, that really signals to me, oh, your hand does not have a lot of spell cards in it. It has a lot of the land type cards in it. So that means maybe there's a little less cover than I think hiding in that hand over there.
Right. And, very interesting how game 1 we were talking about Justin binning this Solitude off the top and how, for Gerrick that maybe means, oh, you need lands, you're a little bit desperate for lands here. And now we're seeing almost the opposite thing take place.
Exactly the opposite. Yeah.
Kind of like you said, it's just so much information for the players here. Creates as we're gonna see Orem's chant for Gerrick hitting the yard, and we see 1 in hand. So actually, is that 2 in hand?
I didn't get a great look, but 2 in hand would be tough. I mean, that's the risk of this card. I kind of wonder if you're supposed to, trim. I don't know. The card looked great, obviously, for Gerrick in game 1. I mean, we got a concession on the second copy, so maybe I'm just talking nonsense. But to me, intuitively, it seems like a card you really wouldn't want to draw really more than 2 of in this matchup ever. And you say, okay, well, as a 4 of, that shouldn't be that likely. But you draw so many more cards in this matchup than you do in the average game because the games go so many more turns. So you naturally just draw more cards than you do in the average match where it only goes maybe to turn 5 or whatever. And that means you're much more likely to draw more than 1 copy. So maybe you're supposed to trim 1. I don't know. Maybe, again, could be talking nonsense, but Gerrick's bidding 1. I guess maybe he lined it all up. No land for Gerrick.
Oh, huge. Now, this might be controversial, Drake, but
hit me.
I would play the 1 white mana your opponent concedes the game card. That seems very powerful to me. As we are seeing Justin try to resolve the One Ring here.
The One Ring, indeed.
The One Ring.
Hate that.
I believe it's correct.
I believe you are correct. And here comes Hardcast Force Negation. So,
Hardcast Force.
I mean,
that's gonna resolve.
means you have to, I don't know, it signals quite a bit to me. If we're just hard casting that, not really the card you reach for as your first counter spell. So to me, if you're Justin, you see this force negation going after the One Ring, you kind of have to think that his counter spell situation might be a little awkward. And it definitely is, as you have 2 copies of 1 mana, one white mana opponent concedes the game that Gerrick has not cast for a very confusing reason, in my opinion. And of course, the Force Negation, which I believe he has a second copy of as well in the mix. So very awkward spell mixture for Gerrick indeed.
Yeah, it kind of feels like both players not finding exactly what they want. Although I see another the One Ring in
indeed another the One Ring
to resolve it, and he's got the mana to back it up if Gerrick goes for a counter spell here, which he is going to do. And then we're going to see the Mystical Dispute come down for the counter spell.
Big fight. And to me, this at the point at which Justin's winning a fight over this, if you're Gerrick, you have to think, okay, this is the one Justin wants to stick. The first one was just starting to work through my counter spells and, really start to kind of get through my spells. As once again, Justin did get the signal that the spells were awkward. And here is an Orm's Chant.
Orm's Chant coming down. Oh, this is very interesting. We know Gerrick has a Mystical Dispute in the hand. So kind of putting Justin in a position where you just can't really do anything. Yeah, that is going to resolve, and then the Mystical Dispute going to come down on the Mystical Dispute. Gerrick going to win the stack war there.
Very interesting sequencing too, the way that all played out. I mean, that was not intuitive to me to go for counterspell first, then Orm's Chant, then second counterspell. I don't know how many players do that. Here it is, great follow-up, but whoa.
Yep.
Yeah.
You're going to try to Lorien Revealed. They're going to get counterspelled immediately. And then Orm's Chant in upkeep against Justin here. And we're just going to put here into hand.
No concessions. Quite odd.
No concessions, even though the card does read 1 white mana, your opponent concedes the game.
Incredible. So a little less powerful than the extremely powerful Orm's Chant from game 1. And 3 Orm's Chants in the yard, 1 surveilled away. The other 2, I don't know. They were powerful. They accomplished what they sought to accomplish. And honestly, kudos to Gerrick. Plenty of leftovers. He's missing land drops, so he's doing a good job really kind of utilizing his spells for actual value, and that way he doesn't start to slip behind. But still is going to need some help. This has not been a good series of exchanges, but this one very well could be.
Yeah, as we're going to see here come down for Justin, but then Gerrick to answer it with a Solitude that is going to resolve and stick. 2 of the 3 cards in Justin's hand here. I'm seeing Force Negation and a Mystical Dispute. But
not bad.
Not sure what the third
I mean, the Mystical Dispute's expiring, but I mean, as far as you have a threat, you're starting to beat down with the Solitude, and you have counterspell backup to kind of keep it alive if that's what you want. If you want to play a slower game, you can do that too. And I mean, Justin's just cycling lands. You have to be pretty excited about that.
Mm-hmm.
Again, we kind of knew he was
cycling land into a land.
On. Not great. Very flooded is Justin Brickman, who surveilled a land away and now cycled another land. So very, very flooded. And it is very obvious. No spells for Justin, plenty of lands. Gerrick has to be excited about
Justin's third card was a Prismatic Ending.
Tough to use on a Solitude. Not
tough
impossible.
Indeed.
But tough. I'm not confident it is actually possible in these builds of the deck. I think we just have kind of the Sultai Triome, Zagoth Triome as the available splash, so we can only get up to 3 on the Prismatic Ending. So not possible in these configurations, but of course, at large, possible.
Yeah, as we're seeing Dovin's Veto as the pickup for turn for Justin here. I mean, normally a hand of cards that you'd be very happy to have in this matchup, right? But when you're staring down the barrel of a Solitude turn after turn, just beating you down.
And this is something that you see come up in control mirrors across the board. We've seen a lot with like Chrome Host Seed Shark, for instance, where after game 1, you take out all of your, if you're blue-white deck, typically your white cards, your your removal spells. And we talked about that in the sideboarding section. The Wrath of the Skies, the Supreme Verdicts, those kinds of things. These 1-for-1 removal spells, you kind of take them out of your deck. So you start to become a lot softer to creatures, obviously, because there's not very many creatures in the control deck. But what that means is your creatures organically get more valuable in the sideboard games. And we're seeing that here. I mean, that was true of the Kahira. We didn't see any Kahira action in game 1. Justin, kind of prioritized a little bit more in the Flood out here in game 2. And now, obviously the Solitude was it was a better exchange, being able to Solitude a creature in the sideboard games than it would be in the main board games, because Justin just has less answers to this Solitude. And I think Gerrick there has a backup copy. That's a real plan. Just like stick your creatures. They're hard to counter because veto and negation, all those things, don't get them. And then just try to end the game that way. You kind of become this like really weird, clunky Delver deck.
Yeah, as we are going, looks like Orm's Chant. So we're going to try and Misty the Solitude. We got a Force of Negation coming down. We have a Force for the Force.
Yeah, I think Gerrick has really identified himself as the beatdown here, as someone, is this kicked? Oh yeah, no attacks for me, thanks. I'm at 5, kick the Orm's Chant. Gerrick really, give him this one thought. Really has identified. I mean, he was going for lethal there. Really, really settled into this beatdown role. Not a lot of lands. Can use his spells, very aggressively did so with the Orm's Chance, now did so again with the Pitch Cast, Force Negation, really demonstrating this mastery where, a lot of people, they love to play conservative in the control matchups, but sometimes like this, where you're missing on lands, you got to get aggressive. And we saw Justin have to do that in game 1, didn't work for him. Gerrick doing it here in game 2, and it looks like it might work. I mean, obviously Justin, not going to get attacked this turn, but still at 5, and, Gerrick has a turn. He can grab this Kahira. Yeah.
Yeah. And very smart and patient play from Gerrick there. Had interaction in hand. But it is also, I mean, he's just fine letting this go another turn, right? Like, we know there aren't answers yet. Gerrick's got more. Gerrick is working with more than Justin is presently.
Yeah, the onus is on Justin to take action. And I think he drew a copy of Isochron Scepter after just using the Orm's Chant, which would have won him the game maybe if it sticks. So that's pretty tough. That is not what you want to see.
So we're going to see an attempted Cast of Teferi. There's a Dovin's Veto for that.
Yeah, I mean, your card doesn't work on really much else. It's typically a prime target, but not really what the game's about. And yeah, all 3 of these cards don't answer Solitude. So I think that's going to be a match there. Gerrick Alford, the 2-0 sweep over Justin Brickman, taking 2 very different roles. We saw Justin kind of brick on lands game 1, try to do exactly what we saw Gerrick do a great job of there, start to just jam spells and protect them. You really kind of hemorrhage. It's tempo is what it's called, but you get made fun of if you say tempo in this job, in this career. So yeah, he started to use his cards in more of a tempo manner with the Orm's Chance and the Force Negation. And that's the power of control. People think of it as very one planned, but that's not actually true. You actually can get aggressive. It looks embarrassing compared to true aggressive decks, but you can get aggressive in spots. I think Gerrick did a great job of that and is rewarded with a nice little 2-0 victory there in round number 1.
Yeah, huge congrats to Gerrick. I mean, both players, again, truly showing such mastery and skill over this deck. I mean, just at the speed of which they were able to pilot the decks, clearly they are aware of the matchup and how to play it. I think we have a backup feature match ready to go, though, Drake. So let's jump into that.
Yeah, let's dive on in. I believe we're going in live. So we're going to get a look here at another control mirror. So if you remember the metagame breakdown, there are 4 copies of control in our modern section. Both of them played mirrors here in round number 1. So that's tough. There's no 2 ways about it. That's tough. But again, these players, they're masters in their own rights. And Dykeman certainly demonstrated that last year, our 2023 MVP and NRG Series champion. And that is, of course, how he punched his ticket back here. Had a lot more of a quiet year. Took it easy this year. And I'm very excited to see Dykeman back in action. A very, very powerful player and someone that is in the midst of what looks to be a mess for him, maybe
yeah,
not.
Definitely a tough situation here. As for Kinman, we're seeing, no longer a Narset, but we're seeing a Narset holding back this One Ring. But both players have a One Ring. Kinman's a little further along. It looks like we're going to be doing some bouncy One Ring things.
Yeah, Cosmic Rebirth too. A card that we didn't get to see in the last match, but I believe every single copy, I'll have to validate that with Ken's list as well. Yeah, every single copy of Control, I believe, supporting that card. Checking Ken's. Yeah, everybody's got 2 copies. So that is that is a card that these Control decks are all in on. Seem to like it quite a bit. And works with Icecrown Scepter. So here we go. Haven't seen this card in action in many years. I guess now, thanks to Modern Horizons 3, able to get this super sweet and fun lock available in this format. Just what we needed.
Yeah, Icecrown Scepter with a counter spell tucked underneath it. Very, very nice here.
Yeah, a card that's, when you talk about the mistakes of the Mirrodin sets, I think kind of gets swept away. There's plenty to point to. Icecrown Scepter really saw some play alongside silence effects and counterspells a long time ago, and it's more or less considered to be a thing of the past, of bygone eras. And so Wizards, maybe for better or for worse, said, all right, this is a super sweet card. Let's get this one in Modern, and it is in Modern, and here we are. We're seeing it in action. We saw it in both players' sideboards last round. I believe it was in both players' sideboards this round. And if I'm correct, I believe every single player is more or less on the same exact control deck across the board. And yeah, now we can put Orb Chant under it, and we can get the good old Silence Icecrown Scepter lock going. Even now, it's no Boomerang, but it does a very good job nonetheless. And Counterspell underneath it ain't bad either.
Yeah, and we're going to see a Mystical Dispute on this Teferi. It looks like we had the counterspell to back it up for Ken, so our Teferi is resolving.
You can bounce that Scepter. This is a great exchange here for Ken. I can't imagine you're going to want that. I mean, the counter doesn't work, so there's a question, right? You're like, do you even care anymore if this Teferi gets the stick? I think it's safe to just go ahead and get that out of here and make sure that even if Teferi gets cleared, you're in the clear.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are going to go ahead and bounce that Scepter back to Steven Dykman's hand, which, Ken, quite the number of bird encounters on this One Ring.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think that was really Steven Dykman's plan. You kind of saw him make a little bit of a face, and as soon as that Scepter is gone, and there's this Teferi, I think things are out of control here. There's a Manamo in play that has been kind of powering up the One Ring, and with it already at 5, I mean, really the question is, can Ken answer it before he dies to it? Because there's just so many cards here, and with a Narset in play, Steven Dykman's own the One Ring does not work. So unless you find one of those, whatever, I mean, this game is just so bad for Dykman. So really that Scepter and trying to protect it was kind of his ace in the hole. Can I stick this and start to get something going? And even with both Planeswalkers available, I mean, Ken's just got so much value. He's really, really far ahead, and he's going to have to really work a miracle here in order to battle his way out.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the platonic ideal for a control player to be discarding to hand size on like turn 10 or whatever. So I think
just the dream.
Pretty good.
Yeah, this is why you play the deck, because drawing cards is fun, and you just want to do more of that. And of course, here we go. He has the Force of Negations abound. He's going to have that because he's just drawn so many cards, and you have to start to battle through that. But the question is, what does Steven Dykman actually want to stick? We'll see what the answer to that is here in just a moment.
I think it might be this Narset here.
Yeah,
which is going to resolve.
The One Ring. Okay. That's something.
It's not nothing. An Orum's Chant.
That's something. We still have the Scepter. So, if we can get the Teferi off the board, we're starting to cook.
Yeah, which looks like that is what Steven Dykman's going to take here.
Another big pickup there. You can get a look there at the MH3 version using the same art, of course. This card... a classic from Magic's past, but finding some play here in Modern Horizons 3. I think maybe Control, when you talk about MH3, Azura's Control, not a deck you talk about getting a bunch of big wins, but I mean, we're seeing Orbs Chat 4 copies of each of these decks. It obviously got some power from MH3, and Scepter, of course, part of that mix as well. So we got the whole package in one go. And Wrath of the Skies, of course, as well, another main deck card. So we actually got quite a bit. We didn't get as much as the whole archetype of energy and all these kinds of things, but did get quite a few upgrades, and able to leverage those here are all 4 of our control players who we've seen through round 1. And of course, featuring the only control mirrors I think we're going to see probably for the rest of the tournament, unless we're talking about top 8 contention stuff. So really getting our full dose of the control out of the way for all our viewers, because there's not a lot left of this you're going to see for the rest. But this is the Magic I like to see, and I'm glad we got to feature here both of our MVPs playing against what I assume is all the players working together here on full 75s. Now, of course, Gerrick, our 2024 MVP, did pick up his match. Dykeman's got a lot more work to do. And I'm not even sure if there is a way to get that work done from here. But if anybody can do it, it's Dykeman.
It's tricky. I mean, Kinman is down to 3 life thanks to the One Ring. Gonna go ahead and ending this Narset so he can draw 6 cards. The casual add 6 cards to your hand.
Yeah, pretty powerful. Pretty powerful. We did manage in 6 cards to find an answer to your own copy of the One Ring. And so that one's going to go back to hand. More cards coming. So that is going to be, again, the classic discard to hand size special that we're excited about. And Dykeman going to draw 1 card off his. So that's tough.
Yeah, that is tough, as we are going to cycle Lorien Revealed here.
I don't want to cast that. So normally, I guess this deck can do a lot of things to play around Narset. Obviously, the cards the best against are the One Ring, and ironically, Lorien Revealed. So Dykeman's hand lining up very poorly against Narset, despite the fact, that's not always the case for these control decks.
As we're going to pass back over to Ken here. And, Dykeman's ring starting to tick away at him as well. It looks like Ken putting the Orum's Chant on the Scepter, and that is going to be the classic Orum's Chant, make your opponent concede line that we saw in the first match as well.
Cheaper than 1 mana target opponent concedes, but 2 mana target opponent concedes, also quite strong. So Orum's Chant, I mean, very convincingly powerful.
I would play 4 copies of both of those cards.
Yeah, they both seem quite strong, and the victors of both of these matches seem to agree with you. Of course, Ken and Gerrick both won their Azorius control mirrors. So I hope you enjoyed that Magic, because again, you're not going to see any more of it for the rest of stage 1. There are only 4 control players, and they played each other. And of course, that took a long time. So what we're going to do here is that is the end of round number 1. We're going to have 2 more rounds of Modern, then 3 rounds of Pioneer, and 2 rounds of Standard for the rest of the day. So we are going to come back with more Modern action here for round 2 of stage 1. Again, 8 wins, you're in top 8, 6 losses, you're out. So easy formula, 12 rounds of Magic to stage 1, 8 of them played today, and round number 2 coming at you shortly. We'll be right back.